Hey Genshin players, so I wanted to make a video I've been thinking about making for a while, for the last few weeks, seeing a lot of the discourse in the community and what people have been talking about, and wanted to add my thoughts. I'll start by saying, no, the title is not clickbait. We are going to talk about burnout and whether or not you should quit the game. Um, and there's some broad subjects that I want to cover that will apply to Genshin. I know there's people who are not going to be happy with me on this video, particularly content creators. I understand the concept of people not playing the game anymore is directly affecting certain people's incomes. And I hope if they see this video that they are willing to watch the whole video and listen to what I'm saying before coming at me in the comments or whatever. So the first thing I want to establish before we talk about any of this, and we're going to come back to this over and over, is I want to talk about something called the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is the idea that you need to continue doing something because of previously invested resources, whether that be time, money, skills, labor, any of that. It's the idea that you don't enjoy something, but you can't stop doing it because of previously invested resources. That is the sunk cost fallacy. And I'm going to bring that up multiple times in this video. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of what that was. Branching off of that and branching off the idea of the sunk cost fallacy and putting our time and resources into things, I want to talk about a few big things that affect Genshin and what it is and kind of gaming in general. The first thing I want to talk about is long-term games, games as a service, games that span multiple years, and I want to talk about metas. I want to talk about metas and how that affects our views of games. When talking about long-term games as a service, I think there's a few things that we need to understand. And I'm talking about games that have subscriptions, games that have frequent patches. I'm not talking about a game that was released and people have been playing for 10 years. I'm talking about games that are actively getting developed over long periods of time. So the first thing I want to bring up about games like these is that all of these games, whether they be subscription based, whether they be free to play with a gacha system, they start out by giving you a lot of rewards, whether that's in the form of how you level up, whether that's in-game currency. They will always give you a lot of stimulus right at the beginning and a lot to do because they want you to be addicted to their game and to keep playing it. And this is something that is very important to understand with long-term games, that their goal is not to be your friend. Their goal is to get you to spend more time and money in the game. And they want you to be addicted. So they are going to give you a bunch of free stuff. They're going to make the leveling system really fast. They're going to do a bunch of things to make you feel like, oh, I'm getting these rewards. Stuff's triggering in my brain. This is fun. I enjoy this. And they do that on purpose and they know what they're doing. But at the core, there is still a game there. And you have to enjoy the game. Even outside of the rewards and getting addicted, I would hope that you're going to continue playing the game because you enjoy it. And enjoying the game, when I say that, I mean understanding the core features of a game and whether or not you enjoy doing those things. Yes, there's like other supplemental things that happen, but at the end of the day, that's what you've got to enjoy to keep yourself going in a long-term game. I think about Final Fantasy XIV, a game I've been playing for almost 7 years now. Having played that game for a long time, I have noticed a couple things about long-term games. There are small changes and there are large changes that can happen to a game over time. Generally, very few large changes happen. Generally, every once in a while, a new feature gets added, something along the lines of a housing system or a mini game area, and things like that happen that give you some more stuff to do, but the core of the game, the combat, the exploration, any of those things, they don't change. However, small changes do happen, small quality of life things like this and that, and those are not it's not insane to expect those kind of things. Those kind of things you will see, and little things will make your life easier and make you enjoy the game a little more. If you don't enjoy the core aspects of a long-term game, you're you're gonna get burnt out. You're gonna get burnt out chasing rewards or holding on to hope that something is going to happen that changes your experience. That being said, burnout on long term games is real. It's definitely real. We start playing these games for one reason. The core of them may be something different. Maybe we're playing with friends, and we hit a point where we just don't want to play anymore. But we feel like we have to because of previously invested time and resources. The sunk costs fallacy that I was talking about earlier. I've heard a lot of creators say, "Oh, I can't stop playing this game because I've spent so much money or I've spent so many hours," and they're like waiting for it to become worth it. And that burnout is caused from this idea that we have to keep going in something even though we don't like it. Uh, Now, how to avoid that burnout and how to not rush through content and things like that. I think there's a few important things to know. I think one is understanding that the time to develop stuff for a video game is always going to be longer than your time to experience it. If you do a piece of story that lasts an hour in a game, that probably took a couple weeks to months for the game studio to actually make for multiple reasons. But that is just an objective truth, is that it will always take longer for them to create something than it will for you to experience it. And I think to combat that, there's a few things that are important. Obviously, taking breaks. And I know people say this all the time, and there's this idea of, well, I can't take a break because I've got to get the rewards or I'll miss an event or things like that. That is part of that addiction that they have created that I talked to you about earlier. Like, the games don't want you to stop playing because they know if you take a short break, that could result in you being gone permanently. Personally, for me, the way I've made it through multiple long-term games and seen stories to their fruition and continued to play has a lot to do with where I position the game in my life. I do not have any long-term games that, for me personally, are my main game. All of my long-term games are filler games. They are filler games that I play between releases of major titles I'm excited for. Now, there are times where the long-term games become my main game. The drop of like Inazuma, the drop of a new expansion in Final Fantasy 14, when there's like a huge push of content. I understand that a lot of people walked into their first long-term game not understanding that. They were all like, "Oh, this is a game I can play 8 hours a day for the rest of my life." That's just objectively not true. You will burn through the content faster than it is getting developed. So with these long-term games, like, what are we working towards? What are we trying to like beat? The actual concept of a meta, and like how the meta affects when you take breaks and when the long-term game isn't your main game anymore and it turns into a side game. The thing about metas is they have a place. I know, especially in the Genshin community, the meta gets viewed as in this very weird light, like as a negative thing for some people, as a positive thing for others. The thing is a meta has a place. And generally where the meta sits with any long-term game, with any community, the meta is based around a common goal. The thing about that goal is once that goal's there and the meta is established, every piece of advice you are going to get for a game is based around that goal. So whether you're receiving advice or giving advice, you need to look at what your goal is versus the meta goal. If you align with the meta goal, cool, take that advice and work towards that meta. If your goal isn't the same, ignore it and move on. Once you've established the goal of the meta and you are working in meta, realize that that goal is obtainable and you can quote unquote beat a long-term game. The thing is once you hit the goal of the meta, generally You have invested a ton of time and effort into learning the mechanics of the game, learning strategies for the game, building up to that point, and you beat it, and you have spent so much time turning into someone who understands the meta that that is the only way you can view the game, is under the lens of the meta. And you continue to invest in this meta even though you've already met the goal, which brings us right back to what I was talking about earlier with the sunk cost fallacy. This idea that you can't go off meta because you've spent so much time working towards it. When the truth is once you've achieved the goal from the meta, you can do whatever you want. And some people can mentally handle that, some people can't. What I would advise is, if you're not someone who can exist within the game without the meta driving you, achieve the goal of the meta and take a break. Take a break, wait till there's more content, wait till there's more stuff for the meta to tackle, and come back. So, thinking about those concepts and bringing them back to Genshin specifically, and answering the question of should you quit Genshin Impact? The first thing I want to talk about is that Genshin is obviously a long-term game. There's going to be a story that spans over 5-10 years. The first thing I'm going to say is Genshin, like all other long-term games, gave you a whole lot of story at the beginning of the game. They gave you a whole lot of the gacha rewards, and they gave you a whole lot to explore because they wanted to get you addicted. They knew how much they had to have ready for launch in order to get you addicted to the game so that you kept playing when those things ran out. So understand that. Understand that the rewards and the progress will never be as good as it was at the beginning of the game. The next thing I want to say is, we talked about you've got to enjoy the game. At its heart, Genshin is a few things. It's exploration, it's combat, it's temporary events, and gacha. If you don't enjoy exploration, if you don't enjoy that, you probably won't enjoy Genshin in the long term, because what they're going to keep adding is more exploration. If you don't enjoy the combat system of Genshin, there is never going to be a mass overhaul to the combat system that magically makes it better. If you don't enjoy the fact that events are temporary and that they're gone, I've got news for you. It's going to be very rare to see something from an event stick around permanently. I've played enough gachas and enough long-term games to know that temporary events are part of keeping people around and keeping people playing. And then the last thing about Genshin is that it is a gacha game. While I think gacha is something to be tolerated in gaming and not something to be excited about, there are people who actually get the kicks off gambling. If you think you will ever be able to put enough time into the game and enough effort to get all of the characters without risking anything, without spending money, that is not the case. They will always release stuff faster to get you to spend money. So you've got to ask yourself, if you're going to keep playing this game, do you enjoy those core tenets of the game? If you don't, I guarantee you there's not going to be some large update, some major feature change that is going to make you love the game. It's not going to happen. The game is what it is. Come back when there is more content. Play again later. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with staying a part of the community, enjoying the characters, enjoying cosplay, enjoying all that stuff, but not playing the game. But don't stay in it so long after you're not enjoying it anymore that you just get bitter and you hate it, which I'm seeing a lot of people do right now. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of the long term of Genshin Impact is the meta of Genshin Impact. I know the meta gets a bad rap, but there is a meta. And that meta is entirely built around the goal of the spiral abyss. When a content creator tells you, oh, you should pull for this weapon, or you should pull for this character, or this is who you should build, or these are the artifacts you should use, that is all built around the goal of beating the spiral abyss and doing the most damage possible. Once you have achieved the goal of beating the spiral abyss, you can do whatever you want in this game. If you are able to clear the spiral abyss and you have enough damage for that, build whatever character you want, play around with random builds that like aren't efficient. It doesn't matter. We know what the meta is, we know what the end game is. You can beat Genshin. You can accomplish that goal, and then you get to do whatever you want. Um if the game's not fun after that point, step away. Step away. I guarantee there is not going to be a new character release. There's not going to be a new weapon. There's not going to be a new event. There's not going to be anything that gets released that's all like, wow, I suddenly love this game again and it's the greatest game ever made. And so if you're someone who needs a goal, you need a meta to move forward, step away for a bit, wait till new enemies, new areas, new bosses are out, and come back and apply the meta to those. And I know there's this desire to keep moving with the meta because of the sunk cost fallacy. You have spent so much time building these characters, learning the meta, learning how the game works, and turning around and being able to say, I understand Genshin, and I'm going to push for that. And so you see anyone doing anything off meta, and it's this mental block of like, why would anyone do that? And it's probably because they've met the meta goal or they did not have the meta goal that was the Spiral Abyss. I know people who have never stepped into Spiral Abyss, they don't care about it, and they have tons of fun. So, basically, getting back to the root question of should you stop playing Genshin? If you no longer enjoy the game and you are hoping for something to get released that will make you enjoy the game again, I don't think that's going to happen. If you are someone who needs a meta goal to push you to keep playing the game, and you've already reached that meta goal, and you think you're going to get a new one, I also don't think that's going to happen. Now, if those things don't apply to you, if you are still having fun even after beating the meta goal, or you enjoy just the main contents of this game, the exploration, the combat, the events, even the gacha system, I think you should keep playing the game. If it's a positive in your life, I think you should keep playing it. In the simplest terms possible, if you enjoy the game, keep playing it. If you don't enjoy the game, step away, because I don't think it's worth your mental health. What I want people to take away from this is that you need to take care of yourself and you need to protect your own mental health over your relationship with Genshin Impact. And those are my thoughts. Hopefully they were coherent. Hopefully they made sense. I hope you are all taking care of yourselves. As all, I have no intention of stopping playing the game. I currently still enjoy it. I play it at a much more leisurely pace than most people I know. Unless I do stop enjoying it. If I hit a point where I don't enjoy it anymore, send me my own video and I will evaluate my position with the game and possibly stop playing for an extended period of time. But I hope you are all taking care of yourselves. And as always, much love.